Good morning, everyone. My name's Trevor, and about a month ago we're running, and my running partner says, hey, would you suggest a really good book? And I thought about it. The Virgin Diet. And he just started laughing. He said, Trevor, it doesn't apply anymore. You know, I have a kid, right? Oh, okay. But actually, I thought about it more throughout that run, and I said, you know why I'm suggesting it? This person was going through a major health crisis. Like, imagine being a parent and your kid's in the hospital. Whoa. And she made sure she got her exercise, made sure her nutrition was perfect, and made sure to get her sleep. Whoa. You can imagine how hard that must have been. Like, how many different systems would you have to set up to do that? And I'm thinking through this fun thing with all these masks and everything else, it kind of feels like we're in a little bit of a stressful time, like that under pressure. It's like, yeah, that is the right song for right now, isn't it? Aren't you glad you're at the gym? No, this gym. Good one. We can't go to, that's right, that's a good point. We're at the spiritual gym today, here. Isn't that the truth, though? Like, we can't go to the gym, and people are suffering for that. So what are you doing to stay physical? Like, what are you doing? So today's the spiritual gym. And you've got some really good trainers. You got Jeff and Vince and Tara and Carmen. You got some good infrastructure and a vet downstairs who does that. We got some really good equipment that brings some cool things to you. So when you're donating to this spiritual gym, we're doing it for ourselves, for our own workout, and remember, so we can be better in the world. Because you just got to think about that mom. The reason that she was doing that, so that she could be sharp and be there for her child. I'm like, whew, that's a pretty good reason. We're talking about self-care through this whole series. And I was just watching a show yesterday, and I saw the mom do the worst thing ever when the plane mask came down. She put it on her kid first, and I'm like, no, don't do that. You're going to go unconscious, and she can't put it back. Oh, yeah, that's what this whole series is about. Put the mask on yourself first so that you can help those other ones around you and really support them. And that's why Friends Church is really cool. We're willing to talk about things like take care of yourself, go to the gym, right? This is one of those places where you can find some healing so we can just take that pressure off a little bit and be better. So have a great week, everybody. And isn't it wonderful? It's so nice and cold, and we're so nice and warm in here. Like, it's, this too shall pass, right? And I think that's maybe one of those pieces, right? Life is seasonal, and that should happen. So Jeff's coming up with a great speech. Jeff, have you been applauded up recently? I don't think so. Could we just have a round of applause? It feels appropriate for Jeff. Yeah. We do need to do that every once in a while. This is one of the beautiful things about a live studio audience.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Should I just keep talking to get me? Oh, yeah, Yannick's giving me the. I get pulled, Jeff. Have a great morning.
Thanks, Trevor. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is a spry group in here this morning, despite the cold outside. Maybe that has something to do with it. Glad you're here. I don't know about you, but find myself probably more often recently, but frequently or consistently, flipping on my phone and going to my photos and just looking through the memories of different pictures I've taken, times I've spent with people in my life. Love doing that. I mean, it just sparks these great memories. For me, often it's pics of my family and I gathered around a table somewhere, yakking and talking. Sometimes it's with buddies on a golf course, or at a pub. Got lots of pictures like that. I notice I have a lot of pics of just friends and family around some big celebrations. You know, more than what it is that we're doing in that moment that the picture reveals, often those pictures remind me of the kinds of things that were going on in my life at that time, kind of the season that I was in. And it reminds me of things that we talked about in those moments. You know, sometimes if a certain picture will bring me back to a conversation. These relationships that just mean so much, and the life that's been exchanged. Sometimes I look at a picture and it just starts making me laugh out loud because I'm thinking of something that we talked about in that moment, or a joke, or something funny that happened. And just remember laughing so hard. Oh, I have a picture of a selfie. I didn't want to show it because I took this selfie with a buddy in the golf course of a clubhouse of a golf course one time. We were both going through a difficult season. And we got through 9 holes. Our golf games were crap. And we stopped at the clubhouse to just grab a bite to eat, and he opened up about something. And it was like, you just sensed a moment. And we began talking as we were waiting for our food. And then I opened up. Before you knew it, we said, why don't we just talk? We didn't even go back out and finish the round. We stayed in that clubhouse for 3 hours and just talked about stuff. I remember when we were getting up to leave, I said, I want to take a picture of us, because this was a sacred moment for me. This was better than any round of golf that I could have played. This was something else. Just thinking about these moments and the ways that these pictures bring me back. I feel this rush of endorphins flow through my body. It's just so meaningful. Friendship and relationship highlights of my life. As I talk about that, I wonder about you. I wonder if you were to, just even as I'm talking, or maybe as you're looking at these pictures, if you're not stirred to think about some of the friendships and relationships in your life. Like when you think about the meaningful moments you've shared with people, where are you? Who are those people that come to your mind? Who are your people? I want you to keep those people in mind this morning. I don't know about you, but as I was flipping through the pictures of 2020, my Rolodex of pictures was a little thin of people spent in my life. I don't think to take pictures of me Zooming with other people or on the phone. It's been a little bit light, huh? Yeah, not surprising. With the lockdown, many of us are feeling disconnected and lonely. Alessandra mentioned that this morning. It's been a tough time being physically separated from those we love so much. I mean, we miss the days when hanging out with others was so easy, so effortless. But for some, it hasn't been all bad. I don't know. There's been more than a few people I've talked with that said, actually, this lockdown has given me a reprieve from some of the bozos that I have hanging around in my life. They said some of the awkward social gatherings and obligations that I've been able to duck out of this past year. It's been amazing for that. I've heard some people reference just the needed space that it's given them from perhaps what they would call toxic relationships. It's interesting. It's remarkable, isn't it, just how much our relationships can add to or subtract from our quality of life, our well-being. I figure while we're locked down, it's probably a great time to start really processing and thinking about the relationships we're in. Thinking about perhaps changes that need to be made. Things that could be done to tune up some relationships. Because let's face it, anything you do right now, anything you decide to do, to say or to act on, it's going to be a while before it touches down. Like that's how relationships work, right? Very little that you will do or say in a moment will change everything. There's a lag time in relationships. There's There's time where someone says, you can say something, but then they say, well, yeah, but prove it. We'll see. There's a lag. And so while we're locked down, we can't do much. I figure we could start in motion something that maybe we could start feeling a week to a month, 3 months from now. Let me ask you, if you were to think of the various friendships in your life, how would you say they're doing? And maybe to make it a little more specific so you could actually answer that a little more intelligently, like which friendships would you say you're in really add value to both parties? Like not just to you or not just to them, but where you feel that real kind of reciprocal thing kicking in. Would you say that you're involved in a relationship or two or a friendship that is a little lopsided? Where it's mostly one person initiating and doing the heavy lifting. The other person is kind of responding, kind of reacting, waiting. How much safety and trust is there? Like, how open do you feel you can be with your people or some of your friends? Could you go to those in your circle in a time of crisis? Do you feel you really could? Do you feel like they would really be there for you? That's sometimes two different things. Could you share vulnerable information? Some of the dark stuff. They say 90% of the stuff that we talk about, 90% of the stuff we can talk about with our people. 10% rarely gets brought up. Who can you share the last 10% with? How available are they? Better yet, how available are you to them? How do you most often feel after you've spent time with some of these people in your life? That can be telling. You know, if you're like me, when I first started asking these kinds of questions of my friendships, I found it difficult because not all of my friendships are equal. Like some of these questions, I go, well, yeah, but I don't really look at that friend like that. That's not what our friendship is about. I don't need that from that person. I quickly began to realize that, like Facebook, not all friends that you accept are friends. Right? That's kind of key. In fact, there are two relational categories that get mixed up a lot when it comes to friends. And the confusion causes a lot of frustration and heartache. I'm speaking of the difference between social friendships and personal friendships. Some would say that that's the difference between acquaintances and real friends. It doesn't matter what you call them. There's a big difference between the two. You know, you can form a social friendship pretty easily. Literally, that happens when you introduce yourself to someone. That's when a social friendship begins. Literally knowing their name. I met some people this morning. I introduced myself, they introduced themselves. I made some social friends this morning. You'd be able to pick them out of the crowd. They'd be able to walk in the room and go, hey, I've met that person. That's literally the start of a social friendship. You think about all the social relationships you're in right now. Just think about it for a second. The people you went to school with, you know their names, you know perhaps their families. Maybe neighbors you've lived beside over the years, both as a childhood, now in adulthood. Your work colleagues and clients you've had, both currently and in the past. Think about people you know by name here in the church community, people that you've met at different times. Some extended family, distant cousins. These are all personal relationships that you have in. Now, some have a smaller circle, some have massive circles of social friendships. You might not know them well, but boy, I tell you, these social friendships, they can be a lot of fun. They can be meaningful at different times in our lives. We can share things in common. This morning we came out of a room, we were talking about football. Tom Brady, fan or not. We can have some great conversations about this stuff. We can share things that we're passionate about. You find another Calgary Flames fan, man, you can spend an hour talking about Markstrom and man, our Flames time might be coming. You can have a blast with that person and really not have a very deep relationship. These social relationships can be incredibly valuable. Over the course of a lifetime, you can accumulate hundreds and hundreds of these kinds. And these kinds of friendships are interesting because they move in and out of our lives really effortlessly, don't they? There's a woman who we've become really close to. She went through a difficult divorce a number of years ago. When it all went down, some gossip, nasty things were shared with friends on both sides. But after the dust cleared, people started picking sides. She said it was like 95% of her social circle ghosted her. She said that was a terrifying experience. What she felt was her community just evaporated. That kind of kept him. So she said she'd be online and she would see a picture of her old wine club with all the girls. They were still meeting, but the invitation stopped. You know, sadly, this is a common story. I mean, you go through a divorce, you come out of the closet, you change churches, you move, you make any major life change, and any number of social relationships that you're involved in can kind of come and go. Your kids stop going to a certain school, and all of a sudden, you're not coming in contact with certain parents. Your kids stop playing sports, start playing hockey. No longer do the Tim Hortons cups get exchanged at the local arena. You can go from hundreds to a handful in what can feel like overnight. That's because at this level, the social relationship, there's not a lot of skin in the game. There's not a lot of commitment to speak of. And it's not malicious. It's just, you know their name. You happen to be in the same spot at the same time and you exchange some friendly stuff and maybe occasionally or more frequently, you're coming together. But it stays at a fairly, it doesn't go deep. So it's important that you understand with this, like, times change and social friends change. Misunderstanding this category and just how many of our friendships fall into this category can be very enlightening. I know there have been different seasons of my life. I categorized a lot of certain kinds of people as friends, just friends. So when I got ghosted, it was heartbreaking. For this reason, many people don't place a lot of value on these social relationships. They go, I don't want some shallow surface relationship. I want a real friend. And I don't need 1 million friends. I just need 1 or 2. I've heard that from people. But what they often don't realize is that the good friend, that diamond, or those few friends, they come from the circle of social relationships. They don't just appear magically, right? They start from somewhere and move inward. So if you're not cultivating social friendships, chances are, eventually, if your best friend moves away and you haven't been cultivating this other circle, you're going to have a very small pool to draw from. Which really it brings me into this whole area of personal friends. Some would say close friends. You know, Jesus had this turned on. I mean, he engaged with thousands of people. And probably of the thousands that he had worked with, he developed, hundreds of people that he knew by name. Even his entourage, they say it kind of swelled and decreased over time, but he'd be traveling with like as many as 70 people. Of that 70 were his disciples. People he knew, guys he knew well, he spent a lot of time with. But even of the 12 disciples, like really, his guys, he had 3 of them. it seems, from what we read. 3 that he really leaned on. Let's talk about these personal friends of ours. Personal friends are the ones who have truly earned our trust, and vice versa. They're the ones we feel safe and comfortable with, turning to in those times of crisis. They're the ones that you don't hesitate with. Hopefully. They're the ones that you really know you can confide in with that last 10%. Social friendships, sometimes you can make the mistake of sharing too much with. And we learn painfully those lessons. But those personal friends, you know, they guard that stuff. It's the kind of friends you can spend 3 hours in a clubhouse with. Sometimes just lay it all out there and go, I have just given you enough information to bury me. But I trust you. It's trust. In this space, things are much different from the social friends because there is this level of expectation too. Like, oftentimes an invite to a close friend feels a lot different than an invite from a social friend. You have something going on, you make a call, social friends, oh yeah, sorry, can't help you. Personal friends, they go, oh, okay, let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do. Now there's boundaries, there's all that stuff, but personal friends don't shirk stuff easily. You know you have a personal friend relationship with someone when you can call in the favor. Once upon a time, moving was something where the whole village came in. Now, it's reserved for very personal friends, isn't it? I don't want them seeing all my junk. I don't want them to see me at my worst. No, I'm very careful who I invite into that. Professional movers, here we go. I'll spend the money. I don't want people doing that. But personal friends, they've seen it all. They've heard it all. True? Healthy personal relationships, they have a way of celebrating each other, fighting for and defending each other. Someone says something about your friend, good personal friends go, whoa, stop right there. You're talking to the wrong person about that. You either go to that person, sort that out, or you stop talking right now. But I'm not listening to you. They celebrate. When a friend has a success, gets a promotion, does something good, those personal friends are standing there cheering, going, hey. Jealousy and envy. No, that's stuff that often lies in the social circles often. Criticizing. No, personal friends that go, no, I'm proud of you. Hey, everyone, did you hear about John? Hear what happened? John? Go ahead and tell him. No, I'm not telling him. I'm telling him. He got a promotion this week. He's been lining up for this for a long. Personal friends love those opportunities. They want that person to succeed. You got anyone like that in your life? They're like diamonds, these friends. Diamonds. Time spent with these people can leave you walking away like the weight of the world just got lifted. That's how I felt in that clubhouse that day. Gave him a hug on the way out. I was just like, oh God, I needed that so bad. Diamonds. But these friendships are not built overnight. These kinds of bonds, they require exponentially more energy and time to form. The trust that's needed to get to those points to experience the true beauty and power of a personal friend is incredibly high. It gets built in little ways over time. You just keep adding the things that build the trust, the little promises that are kept, the small moments when you showed up, the little secrets that you guard, the way we treat them or speak of them in front of others when they're in the room and when they're not, the way we reach out to them in dark moments, the way we stay with them in dark moments. It's a high price. You don't find a diamond ready-made very often. I'm not going to say never. Rarely. Rarely that thing gets built little by little by, and this is very misunderstood. I've heard people say, I just have never had close friends. I've never been in the right space. I just never found them. No, you build them. Let me ask you something. How many close personal friends do you have in your circle right now? This is not a condemnation. This is not meant to cast any judgment. If you're in a place where you're going, I don't really have any, I hope today this stirs something. But I want you to think deeply about how many or who has in the past been in that circle, in your circle of trust. Do the friends in your circle understand who you truly are and what you value? Is there a reciprocity? Is it you fighting for the friendship only, or is it them only? Have you ever experienced things that made you question their trust, or your trust in them, or them in yours? Let me ask you this. Is there anyone in your circle of trust, your personal friendship circle, who might not technically belong there? You know, if you go back and you study the migration patterns of your friendships over the years, there's likely been some movement in and out of these two circles. Social into personal, personal into social. And that's normal. Did you know that? Sometimes you might have a close personal friend and life changes, and that relationship changes. Sometimes it's just life, sometimes it's choices made. That can happen in good ways and bad ways. There's a downgrading and there's an upgrading. Often the problems arise when we don't acknowledge the migration or the need for it. If you don't notice that someone's in a place in your life that doesn't belong there, oh man, that's a formula for a lot of heartbreak. I think this makes sense, right? You sit there and you have someone who's been close to you, and you want them to act the way they once did. You want them to be your friend the way they once were, but they're not. So you're left at this difficult decision if you don't realize it. A big part of social self-care is stepping back and acknowledging honestly how your relationships are shifting with your life and with theirs. We're talking about social self-care this morning and what that looks like. Social self-care involves looking carefully at who's in your circles and thinking about their expectations and your expectations and going, is it a fit? What's changed? I know sitting with this woman, it was, as we were talking about these circles, in fact, it was after a message that I talked about these very things years ago, that she just said, I got no one in my social circle. It was one of the first times she just was able to kind of articulate what's going on. It's going, something shifted. And that's my problem right now. Good, that's healthy. That's what social self-care sounds like. You're looking, you're snapping the x-ray machine onto all your relationships. And looking, who's where? What do we got here? As you look at it, you begin adjusting your expectations. You begin communicating accordingly. Let's talk about time and effort. When it comes to improving friendships of our lives, a huge consideration is the amount of time and energy that you and those you love or want to love are willing to put in the time and the effort. This is one of the most misunderstood things that I find. The number of people I talk to and say, oh, I got these friends, just so amazing. And maybe you've said this. We cannot speak with each other. We cannot see each other for years. And we just get together and we just pick up right where we left off. They're just amazing. To which I want to tell them, well, you got a neat social friend there. But that is a little different function than a close personal friend. True friends take time and energy. What you put in will likely determine a lot of what you're going to get out of that friendship. When Kathy's brother passed away about 1.5 years ago, it was obviously a dark time in the family. Very difficult. What added to the difficulty was the fact that he had left his entire estate without a will. He had a lot of stuff. He had a house that needed a lot of TLC. Now, at this point, it's just Kathy and her 2 sisters in town here. Her brother lives on Vancouver Island. And we saw a major project that had to be dealt with right away. Without even thinking about it, I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll lead the charge on the home front and all of the TLC that we got to do to that place before we can unload it. I didn't know what I was signing up for. Like, as a family, we found ourselves with a situation that required so much time and so much energy. And then COVID happened, of course. And then different family expectations start surfacing in the middle of this project. You know, I'm making decisions on behalf of family and then not realizing I'm missing them. And so anyways, a ton of work. It felt like every disposable minute I had outside of work and my immediate family's needs felt like it was being taken up. There were very few days where I wasn't either on site working or thinking about it, researching what the next step was. I didn't recognize the wider relational impact of that season on my friendships when I stepped into it and then as I got into it. I mean, there were consequences for my busyness. I am a part of a number of different WhatsApp groups. Now WhatsApp is being villainized, so now we got to go to Signal, right? But whatever. I'm on these WhatsApp groups and I'm chatting with all these guys. It's one of the fun things I love doing it every night. Getting on there and chirping with some guys, talking about this, that, whatever, finding about their lives. That went away. Zero time to do that. Every once in a while, I would go on and it would tell me there's like 385 comments. And I would look at that and go, I don't have time to even start. Off it goes. My time spent socializing with my friends and my family, even over the phone, just became so infrequent. The times I spent with Kathy, just downtime, relaxing, chilling, doing things recreationally, just got cut out. I had enough time to focus on my job, focus on the immediate, eat, sleep, and keep moving. Every now and then we'd squeak in something. Now, there's nothing wrong with these life seasons that we go through. They happen, right? You take on a new role at work. You discover an exciting hobby that you take up. Maybe you meet someone new. If you're single, you meet a love interest, and all of a sudden, everything gets put on hold, right? You take on a house project. Maybe someone gets sick in your family. These are all very important life events, but they take serious amounts of time and energy. And that is often the exact same pool that gets pulled at from your friendships. It's the same pool. That discretionary time, it's finite. You only got so much. And when you start giving, other things pay the price. Unintentionally, we can begin to neglect the people in our lives. This could be us doing it. It could be someone you know, someone you love that's doing it right now. Just relational neglect, and it happens sometimes without any maliciousness. Just life. But there are consequences for this. And it's important to just think about this for a second. Oftentimes, especially with social relationships, it's out of sight, out of mind. People get hurt because they're no longer being invited. It happened to me. I go on WhatsApp and I find out the guys were all doing the Zoom call. I'm like going, hello? They're like, well, you haven't been around. I'm sorry. We talked about it on the... Just like, oh, okay. I found that for me, some of my family got a bit offended, hurt that I wasn't staying in touch as frequently. It felt like I didn't care about them, which led then to this awkwardness. I'd pick up a call and they'd give me that kind of, oh, look who's calling. I'd be like, what? They go, oh, it's nice that you thought of us. Which then gets my hackles up, right? Conversations then feel a bit forced. I'm trying to get caught up on their lives, trying to let them know I care about them. They're throwing me out a little, oh yeah, things are okay, things are good. I notice even Kathy and I, after spending less and less time together in fun and relaxed ways, it became business. We're just simply together to get what needs to be done. It's like all of a sudden we're not looking for ways to laugh with each other, to nurture each other. We're losing sensitivity to what the other person is going through. Every now and then we find ourselves going, oh, you think you're tired? Here's the person is just opening up, going, I'm just a little stressed right now. Oh, you're stressed? And that goes sideways. Effects are immediate. Sometimes, some of them were immediate. Some of them just slowly built over time. You didn't see it. I had a conversation with my dad one night. And all of a sudden, I began connecting all the dots. Man, my life had taken on a major change with all that was going on with Kathy's brother. And I hadn't really explained how my life had changed. For all he knew, my life was normal and I just wasn't calling. Social self-care steps back and looks for spots where unintentional neglect may have occurred. It's scanning. Is there someone I've just kind of ignored? Is there someone I've been missing, even unintentionally? And then it kind of goes, you know what? Oh, I got to send out an APB to the family and let them know something shifted. Don't take it personally. I've been out of commission. It's amazing how one little call can just resize expectations. Now everyone's good. Self-care, social self-care does those things. It just pays attention. How is my life shifted and have I communicated properly to the people in my life? Because you know what? Good friendships get built by paying attention to these kinds of things. But sometimes, you know what? It's not by accident that we neglect relationships in our lives, is it? If I was to be really honest, I'd have to admit that some of my relational neglect has been me pushing away from someone who has upset me. Perhaps you've had a friend or a loved one who's done or said something that upset you. Maybe they embarrassed you one time or annoyed you one too many times. You just go, you know what? Time out for them. Have you ever done that? Not just me, is it? Time out. I don't want to see them for a bit. Maybe there was an argument. Different political views. Boy, there's been a few of those. Hey? Religious views, sensitive topics. Within an hour, I find, sometimes less, enough can be said or done to just sour the relationship. Maybe there's a little judgment, a little condemnation. Maybe you realize that a trust was broken. A little resentment then. Oh. In moments like these, rather than saying something or confronting the behavior, I find it's sometimes just easier to stop reaching out as much or stop responding to when they start reaching out. To stop responding to their requests for conversation and interaction. Just downgrade the personal relationship to a social for a while. Some would say, well, that's healthy. Well, can be. Depends on how you do it. You just ghost them. I find confrontation challenging. I don't like doing it. Ghosting is easier. And they're going, what the hell? What did I do, Jeff? It's like, nothing. What? What? But it's weird in that process of ghosting or just ignoring or just tuning out. You know, you don't just recategorize and forget about it. Those loose ends, they add up. Someone starts talking about that person, you're like, oh, you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. Something happens and it's like, oh, awkward. They chew up a lot of energy on your hard drive. Social self-care, when you do it well, steps back and looks at the loose ends that exist in your circles. It asks, who do you have unfinished business with? Is there something that needs to be said or done there? You hear us talking often about conversations you might need to have. This is what I'm talking about. These relational loose ends. Identifying where situations have changed, the relationship status, and may need closure. Or you may have to revisit an argument or discussion that left on the wrong foot. Just going, you know, I think there's some, it's not sitting right. Can we just go back to that? Now, relational self-care just forces you back to the table in one way or another, but it says, deal with this. Just deal with it. If you have to end the friendship, okay, well, or if you have to declassify the friendship, recategorize, that's fine. But don't just leave it out here somewhere. Just deal with it. Sometimes when there's an unwillingness or a refusal to respect one's boundaries or personal values, when there's a refusal to find shared meaning, when there's just a constant nitpicking, a constant arguing, trying to prove a point, whatever, you're left with a decision where you go, okay, you know what? This has to end. But there's a healthy way of doing it and ending it. Social self-care focuses on how to do that well. So for some practicing social self-care, that might mean what it means, that might be something you might need to do. Okay, I'm done. This act of social self-care I'm talking about this morning, it's like it's maintaining a flower garden. It's really what it is. Like, beautiful flowers don't just show up on a person's yard. Like, I think about Tanya Montague, you know Rod, who plays the violin. His wife, Tanya, is an unbelievable gardener. If you've ever seen her beds in her yard in the summer in full bloom, it's unbelievable. The amount of hours she spends out in that yard, weeding and pruning, deadheading, fertilizing, watering. Friendships are like that. They need all of it. She tells me, she says, I've found sometimes I'll plant flowers in a certain place, they do poorly. But then I pull them up and I put them over here. Boom, they're taken off. Sometimes friendships are a lot like that. They're just in the wrong spot, the wrong expectations. Let me ask you something. How much weeding have you been doing? How much watering have you been doing? How much fertilizer have you added to your friendships? When's the last time you just reached out to someone and said, you matter? You matter to me. So, I don't know what self-care looks like for you this morning. Maybe you can spend some time thinking about that. Maybe there's a loose end you need to tie up. Maybe there's someone that needs to be upgraded or downgraded. Maybe you need to just reach out and build some more acquaintances into your social circles. Maybe you need to invest some real time in a person you love deeply and nourish that friendship. I don't know what it is. I hope you practice some self-care this week. Because what you put in is what you're going to get out. Pretty simple. It's my prayer for you this week. I pray a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, after planting, watering, you're looking at your flower garden. There's a place on my street. There once some people that maintained their yard unbelievably. It was like a show house. Then they moved, and that place fell apart. Remember looking at their gardens going, oh my God, that is a nasty tragedy. But then they moved, and some people moved in, and I remember the repair work they started doing. And it took them a while, but to see what they built again. That is the most beautiful metaphor I can think of our relational world. You got some flower beds that need some repair. Get busy, because they can flourish again. All right, I'm done. Vince.
Thanks, Jeff. What a great message for right now, isn't it? Today we're actually going to say goodbye to one of our team members. About 10 months ago, we hired Tara Hart to be our kids pastor. I remember her signing the contract, and then like 2 days later, the lockdowns happened. And she has been on a COVID roller coaster from hell ever since. Program closed for the first 3 months, then opened, then closed, then restrictions, then this, the next thing. And then in her personal life, she's been through 5 quarantines in 10 months. Isn't that bananas? Her kids are home, she's homeschooling, she's trying to handle all that. Her husband is a firefighter, so she's a first responder. So their life is just dancing in COVID all the time. And so finally something had to give. She said, guys, I need to take a break. And so with love in our hearts and celebration for what she was able to do in the short time she was with us, we're going to say goodbye to Tara. She's still family to us. She will always be family to us. But again, she can't do the job right now. So it's a little bit sad as we say goodbye to her. But we look at her life and where she's going to put her energy going forward, and we can only celebrate her. So it makes you think, what's going to happen with kids program? That's a good question. Right now, we're waiting on the government to tell us what we can and can't do. So as time goes on and we figure out what we can and can't do, all the parents who have kids in the program, we have your emails, and we'll email you to keep you up to speed on what's going on. So that's the bad news, but again, I think it's also some good news, because we want to see Tara in the healthiest place she can be. Fair? If she's listening, let's give her a round of applause just to say thank you. As we finish up, I just want to invite you back next week. Jeff's going to talk about personal self-care. It might not just be like, the manicure that I go get every 2 weeks. It might not be that. But there's something about living true to who we are that just takes an incredible amount of weight off our shoulders. So if you're living in that space where you have a lot of pressure to be someone you're not, this is the message to come see. Have a great week, everyone. See you next week.